Episode 16, and this week I look at decentralized exchanges and I break down exactly how they work. Hey, and welcome to the Learn Cardano podcast, the podcast where we break down all the ins and outs of Cardano so that you have a better understanding of exactly what's going on in the ecosystem. This week we have a couple of news updates, and then we're going to get into the topic of decentralized exchanges. I'll be talking about all the concepts, all the terminology that you need to know in regards to better understanding decentralized exchanges, or DEXs as they're called. I also have an interview with Chris from Mirqur. I published this interview online on YouTube, but you can also listen to it here on this audio podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast series, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review. It really helps with the discoverability of the podcast and helps other people find it when they're searching for Cardano-related material on any podcast network. Okay, let's get into the news for this week. So two main news stories for this week. The first one is the MinSwap team are putting out what they call a fair ISO, or a fair initial stake offering. So this is a response, I guess, to how Meld are doing their initial stake pool offering, or initial stake offering, and they wanted to do it in a little bit more fairer way, where the pools that get the delegation to distribute the tokens is actually the pools in the community. So they're suggesting that they're going to select about 30 small stake pools in the Cardano ecosystem and have those pools mint the MinSwap tokens for them. They've also taken a step further and put together a logarithmic function to calculate the rewards that will be distributed to the network, or distributed to the delegators. This will ensure that big whales that come in with 13, 14, or 50 million ADA won't get all of the tokens. The more you delegate, the less you get. So there is a fine balance between how much you delegate for how much reward you will get. Now, I've got some images that they've posted on Twitter in regards to the logarithmic function and how it looks. So if you jump onto our website, cardano.com.au, you can see this function in action and their embedded tweets, so you can find out more about this fair ISO that they're doing. They're releasing this on the 16th of July, so this is quite time-sensitive information if you do want to be delegating to the MinSwap pools that they've selected, which they haven't selected yet, or haven't announced at least, and you'll get into those distributed tokens that they're planning to do for the delegation cycles on these pools. So it's a really interesting concept, and I really like it because it is definitely helping with the decentralization of the network, rather than all of the delegation going to certain pools in the network or one particular pool provider. It's distributing it out to many smaller pools. More people can participate, and the large holders of ADA at the moment aren't going to take all of the MinSwap tokens that they're providing. So it's a really cool concept. I'm really behind these guys. Long and his team are doing some really cool things and responding to how the community is reacting. So I really like their approach, and I really hope this launch goes really well. So please keep your eyes and ears peeled for more updates in regards to the MinSwap token launch, which they'll be doing on a random 30 or so pools on the network. Thumbs up to them. The next news item I'd like to bring up is Alessandro has launched his wallet called Nami Wallet on the Cardano blockchain, and it's publicly available now, and you can download it, install it as a browser extension, and use it as a Cardano wallet. Now, there are two really cool things about this. One of them is that it is a small browser-based one, very similar to MetaMask. So you'll be able to use this on a lot of decentralized exchanges that are coming into play. So all of these DEXs that are out there will need a wallet like this that will connect directly to their decentralized app that they're building and be able to provide liquidity to the particular decentralized exchanges. So you do need something like this to make it work and make the user experience really easy. And this is the first one that I've seen. I've been told that Yoroi are working on their own version of this, but because the Yoroi wallet is so much more mature with a lot more features and the pool finding tools, etc. They would have to build in all of that onto their browser extension version of their wallet. So it's a little bit more work that they'll need to do, but hopefully they get to market soon as well, because we do need options in regards to what we can use. Now, the really cool thing that I saw with their wallet that Ken Adams pointed out for me, which I obviously didn't read the documentation on because it was so late at night when I first saw this wallet, is that you can delegate to a stake pool directly from their website. So at the moment, it's implemented on the Armada Alliance website. This alliance is a group of stake pool operators that run all of their stake pools using Raspberry Pis. So our stake pool is a mixture of cloud and Raspberry Pi devices, which is a pretty cool little mix. But, we rely on the cloud infrastructure to make it all operating as cleanly as possible. But these guys do it all on Raspberry Pis. Very low power usage, and they're fully geeking out on it. And I think it's really cool. Now, what Alessandro has done is that he's put together a website with the team there so that you can delegate directly from the website itself. You can choose which pool you want to delegate to via the website. Click on the little connect button to connect your Nami wallet to that particular pool. Choose delegate, and there you go. So I'd love to see this, if it's possible, to start being implemented on all the other stake pool operators' websites, so that now when you visit the stake pool's site, you can see that little delegate button, connect in your Nami wallet, and then delegate directly from there. So you don't need to go through all these pool finding tools, going through Daedalus and searching through the pool delegation center there, or going through Yoroi and searching for a particular pool that way. It's a couple of extra steps that you don't really need to do. And this way, if I ask you to go to our website and click on that delegate button, connect your wallet, and done. It's as easy and as quick as that. I think a lot of smaller stake pool operators would find this really beneficial, so they can actually just drive users to their website, a single point of reference, and get delegators delegating, as opposed to going to Yoroi, finding the pool in the delegation center, typing in the ticker, which they could get wrong, finding multiple pools that may or may not be the right one, and then delegating to the wrong one, or hopefully delegating to the right one. So it's a different user experience, and I really like that idea of that. I was thinking about this ages ago, but I didn't know if it was possible, but obviously it is. And kudos to Alessandro to bring that to the market and actually showcase it with his Nami wallet. Now, that's all I have this week in regards to news items. So let's get into our main topic for this week, decentralized exchanges. Decentralized exchanges, or DEXs. Now, the bit of feedback that I got in regards to the other interviews that I did and some of the other content that I've been releasing is that people still don't understand the concept behind DEXs and all the little bits and pieces that make them up. So I'll just go through some of the core functionality of a DEX, what some of these particular terms are, and how it actually relates to the bits and pieces of a DEX, and how they all interconnect and work together. So let's actually first look at what a decentralized exchange is and compare it to what a centralized exchange is. Decentralized exchanges are a great way to buy and sell cryptocurrencies, but they do differ greatly from centralized exchanges. Centralized exchanges have what's called order books, where users will have a balance of certain cryptocurrencies that they are wanting to buy and sell, and will place those orders onto the market. So when you place an order on a centralized exchange, you may want to buy a certain cryptocurrency. You would have the buying currency that you're buying with locked in that particular order. So now there is a bit of liquidity there, so that when the order gets executed, that currency gets delivered. Now, on the other side, if you're buying something, someone will be selling a particular currency, the other one that you're trading with. Now, this would also be locked in to the market and at a particular buy or sell price, and that will get executed based on what other orders are opposing it. So because the orders have a certain variable of locked in asset in that particular order, the order can be executed when the requirements of price are met. So you have the liquidity from both sides, from the buyers and sellers, and the open order books, which are based on the price that these people want to buy and sell at. So that's how a centralized exchange works. But with a decentralized exchange, you don't have those parties actively bidding and selling for a certain price. Instead, you have what's called an automated market maker, which executes the deal. Now, what is an automated market maker? This can be found on all decentralized exchanges. Automated market makers use a mathematical formula in order to determine the price of a particular asset. So on a decentralized exchange, the price is determined by what's called a constant formula or constant product formula that is implemented to track and manage the price of the trading pair. Now, a really popular decentralized exchange is a Uniswap, and this was the first decentralized exchange and has a very simple formula to track the price of various token pairs, and it uses a constant from that particular formula. In this simple formula, X is one token, for example, ETH, and another token, Y, is multiplied together to give a constant value. So let's say token X is 10 ETH and token Y is 10 ADAOZ. So multiply that together, you get 100. And 100 is that constant value where it has to try and meet that equilibrium. Now, in the case of an automated market maker, the trade is done directly to a smart contract. So on a centralized exchange, you are buying and selling against someone else, another party. Maybe it's an algo trading bot or another person who is buying and selling a certain amount of a currency based off a particular price. And you have to wait for that price to fluctuate to a point where you can execute your order. But with the automated market maker, you're doing that directly to a smart contract. So there is always a third party there, the smart contract, to execute the order. Whereas on a centralized exchange, if you want to sell your ADA, for example, and there is no one wanting to buy it at that particular price, then that order will not get executed. So that's the big difference. That's the big difference between a centralized exchange and a decentralized exchange. The automated market maker is always there. It may not be at the price that you want, but there is always a way to execute that particular contract. Now, where does the liquidity come from? Where is the assets where you can actually buy and sell? Now, this comes in the form of what's called a liquidity pool. And users will have to provide that liquidity to the decentralized exchange in order for other users to buy and sell certain trading pairs. So what liquidity providers do is provide an equal amount of token A and token B into a liquidity pool that will form a particular trading pair. Then someone else can come in and buy and sell based off that particular trading pair, or what is also nicknamed as a swap. Now, the interesting thing here is that because of this constant product formula that is added to the exchange, where token X multiplied by token Y will always equal a constant value, when you buy and sell a particular token, for example, ADA versus ADAOZ, if you are providing more ADA to be sold in that pair, there will suddenly be more ADA in that particular liquidity pool compared to ADAOZ. This will drive down the price of ADA in that particular pair, making it a little bit cheaper. So the pool will always try and reach that particular equilibrium based off that constant formula. Hopefully that's making sense. Now, this brings in a different and new term called slippage. So now when the price deviates too much from its original balance, the percentage difference is called slippage. And this could cause what is termed impermanent loss. Now, when the percentage difference is too high, you technically, well, you do lose out on the amount of tokens that you are holding and provided to that particular liquidity pool. But if that price comes back to equilibrium of where it originally was, that impermanent loss is recovered and technically it's not a loss anymore. So when a user actually provides liquidity to a pool, there needs to be some sort of incentive. And this incentive comes in the form of fees that are charged to a user that is swapping particular tokens across the decentralized exchange. So on Uniswap, for example, this fee is 0.3%. So liquidity providers collect these fees over time as swaps are being done back and forth across that particular liquidity pool. Now, this brings on another concept called liquidity mining. Now, liquidity mining is quite popular on some platforms. Now, what this is, it's the process of the AMM, or the Automated Market Maker platform, that provides an asset to a market to receive rewards that may be denominated in that platform's token. So for Uniswap, you get Uniswap tokens. For some of these new ones that are coming out on the Cardano blockchain, such as MinSwap, you get MinSwap tokens. And on the ADAOZ Pro, you get ADAOZ tokens. So all of these liquidity pools have some sort of incentive to the user providing that liquidity and potentially mining some extra asset, and in this case, the tokens that the platform provides. Now with Mirqur, which I have coming up later in this podcast episode, they provide cold hard cash, as Chris terms it, or in this case, just ADA, which is a really cool and novel concept. Now, the whole liquidity mining thing is a little controversial since it has both its advantages and also its drawbacks. There's high risk of fluctuations in the prices of the provided assets that you're putting into a liquidity pool, but obviously there is that benefit of that reward. The liquidity providers themselves can sell that native token on the platform to recover some of their losses or potentially make a profit. Uniswap, for example, we saw the price go from a couple of cents all the way up to $40 per token in the last bull run. So if you were one of the early liquidity providers in a particular pool and mining this particular token, you would have been able to sell out at that really high peak in the last bull run and make a nice profit from all those tokens that you may have been holding on to. Now, there's a lot of pros and cons with automated market makers, and there are definitely good and bad things. So let's go through a couple of these and make sure we are across all of them. So the pros, there is no KYC or know your customer needed in this particular registration process of using a decentralized exchange. Because we're not converting a fiat currency from a regular bank to a cryptocurrency, there isn't that money laundering and know your customer process that's needed. That process has probably already taken place before a user gets to a decentralized exchange. So it's a really good way of being able to get onto a cryptocurrency and swap it for something else nice and quickly without having to go through that entire registration process. Another pro is that you can launch a new token on a market quite easily, simply by connecting up and providing liquidity of that particular new token that you want to launch mixed with another one. So if we were to launch a new token called Learn token, for example, and wanted to provide liquidity to a liquidity pool, we'll just have to provide a whole bunch of Learn tokens and probably a whole bunch of ADA to be able to go through that process. Then users will be able to buy and sell Learn tokens based off what's in that liquidity pool. Now, lastly, there's no middleman in this process. There's no customer service. There's no one to turn off the exchange and say we're down for maintenance for the next 4 hours. There's none of that. It's all on the blockchain. There's no one that is going to stop you from selling or buying particular assets. You may see this from time to time on big exchanges where they conveniently have maintenance windows during high peaks and troughs in the market and stop users from buying and selling and potentially liquidating all of their assets that they're holding on the centralized exchange. In a automated market maker or a decentralized exchange, that doesn't happen. It's all on the blockchain. Now, on the flip side, there are cons. High risk of hacks and vulnerabilities. Now, in researching this topic, I literally saw another tweet, which I'll post up in the show notes for this one, of a particular decentralized exchange that had its cross-chains capabilities, a vulnerability exposed, and the hacker managed to take away millions and millions of cryptocurrency through that particular vulnerability. You can see the links to it within the show notes of this podcast episode by going to cardano.com.au/EP016. Now, this isn't an isolated incident. It is a recurring incident. And if you just Google decentralized exchange hack, you will find a whole bunch of different decentralized exchanges that have had issues, from having their liquidity pools completely drained of all particular assets. So that's quite a big deal. That's quite an issue. And this comes in from the smart contracts that are written. So the smart contracts that are written at the moment on most of these liquidity pools and decentralized exchanges are all done on Ethereum and written in Solidity. So the hackers that have found these vulnerabilities would have looked through the source code of these Solidity smart contracts, found the exploits, and used them to their advantage to drain all the assets out. So that's a really big downside. Another one is money losses due to that impermanent loss. So you may be trading in a very volatile pair that doesn't recover back its price. So you may be trading in something that goes something really weird like Doge and Doge Baby. So who knows what the fundamentals of those projects are really and where the price will be. So one might fluctuate greatly in one direction and one might could be completely rug pulled and disappear off the market. So you'll incur that huge impermanent loss if you decide to move your liquidity out of that particular trading pool. So there is an example of that loss being quite great and detrimental to your actual holdings. Now, one of the last issues or cons is the gas prices or the transaction fees to automate these market makers. So if you're going in and trying to trade on a regular basis to buy those peaks and troughs, the fees that you be paying in gas on the Ethereum network are sometimes astronomical. If there's a lot of movement within the market, you'd be paying even more. So if more people are jumping onto the network and trying to do a big sell because the market's crashing and they want to sell at a high point before it completely tanks, you'll be paying really high gas fees to be able to do that. So a lot of the small bag holders or a lot of the small holders of particular cryptocurrencies won't be able to participate in those particular sells to get a better price. Now, after hearing all those cons, you may think, this is terrible. Why would anyone want to participate in a decentralized exchange? Now, not all of them are like this. Like Uniswap has had a fairly good record in regards to being unhacked or having vulnerabilities exposed. Now, in terms of the Cardano blockchain, everything in terms of smart contracts are written in Haskell. Now, this is a functional-based language which helps sanitize contracts for such vulnerabilities. So having it written in Haskell alone helps avoid a lot of these issues. I'm really hoping to see, I'm not a very good Haskell Plutus programmer, to see all these types of vulnerabilities that are happening in other decentralized exchanges to not happen on the Cardano blockchain at all. The other issue in regards to transaction fees, most, if not all people know and understand the transaction fee cost on the Cardano blockchain is extremely low. At the moment, it's between 0.14 and 0.17 ADA per transaction. It varies every now and then, but that is a very small amount for a transaction compared to what's going on the Ethereum blockchain at the moment. I know you can also do a lot of this on the Binance Smart Chain, but that is a very centralized exchange. So everything that happens on there happens within the Binance ecosystem. So when that exchange decides to close for maintenance or anything like that, you won't be able to interact with the Binance Smart Chain and do what you want on that particular network, as opposed to a completely decentralized exchange. So another really big beneficial factor in regards to Cardano decentralized exchanges is the ERC20 converter, which the team at IOHG or IOHK have been putting together. So this will allow Ethereum-based tokens to be converted into Cardano native assets. Did you get that? It's kind of a big deal. So all of these tokens that are trading on decentralized exchanges on the Ethereum blockchain at the moment, but can't, or people don't want to because it costs so much to do these particular trades or move their currencies around, they can convert them over to a Cardano native token and potentially trade on a Cardano decentralized exchange. That's a pretty cool and big deal. So it's not a off-chain solution. It's literally bringing in and minting brand new tokens, locking in the old ones on the Ethereum blockchain so you can't use them, minting new ones on the Cardano blockchain, and then allowing a user to trade tokens there. A really good example of this is what SingularityNet are doing with their partnership with IOG at the moment, where they are porting over the tokens Aggie over to the Cardano blockchain and calling it ADAOZ. So you'll be able to convert your Aggie tokens to the ADAOZ token and use it on the Cardano blockchain that way. How cool is that? If that isn't bringing over possible mass adoption from Ethereum over to Cardano, I don't know what is. So with the huge popularity of DeFi at the moment, but with the issues that we're seeing on the Ethereum blockchain at the moment with the high fees, possible hacks and vulnerabilities that happen over there, we should see a huge influx of users onto Cardano. We should see various Ethereum projects convert their tokens over to the Cardano blockchain for doing trading there. We should see projects move over from Ethereum over to Cardano, where they can operate at a lower cost and actually have more users jump on board because of that cost factor. More users will be able to participate in DeFi because they're not being charged exorbitant fees to be able to just transfer their tokens onto a particular decentralized exchange's liquidity pool. So I'm pretty excited about this. DeFi, decentralized exchanges, I knew nothing about before this year. I completely missed 2020, where DeFi and decentralized exchanges became really popular. And I'm glad that I'm getting on board right now before Cardano releases a whole bunch of new decentralized exchanges on their blockchain. So it's a really good time to be operating and playing around in the Cardano blockchain. It's just about to blow up. All right. So hopefully you now have a better understanding of how decentralized exchanges work, how and what all these terms are. Now I'm going to transfer over now to this interview with Chris, where he talks about Mirqur and his decentralized exchange, which he's putting together, which is based on strong mathematical foundations. So that really basic formula that I was talking about before, where token X times token Y equals that constant for that constant product formula. Well, Chris takes that a whole step further. He doesn't go into the mathematics behind it, thankfully, but he really explains that he's worked out a really good balance where it doesn't need to just be one single token or two tokens in a pair on one single pair, but it can be a multi-asset pool where you have multiple different assets in different balances to be able to trade against. So Chris goes into that, how his decentralized exchange differs from others and much more. So let's get into this interview with Chris. I have Chris here from Mirqur, and he's joining me on this podcast episode to talk about their decentralized exchange, which is building with his team on the Cardano blockchain. And I'm super excited to have him on this podcast episode to talk all about it, so we can learn more about DEXs and understand all the concepts behind it. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
So let's start off with a little bit of your background and understand how you got into crypto, and then specifically how you discovered Cardano.
Mm-hmm. So I studied computer science in Germany. I was very early pretty much into the idea of AI, like not statistics 2.0, but real AI. I thought, okay, no way in hell are we going to build this manually. We need it to be learned itself, to be able to learn it itself. So I went into machine learning, which is today the field of AI. Then someone pointed out, well, we have so many biological intelligences already, and they're doing shit they don't want to do. Why don't we just, give them a job? And well, another quote that led me to crypto was that in a fundamental, in a free society, as opposed to an authoritarian one, the fundamental transaction is a contract and smart contracts, right? The idea is we can build our own superorganisms, like the most powerful beings, like corporations, for example, are superorganisms, and they're made out of two things. They're made out of people and out of contracts. Maybe a third one, game theory, if you want to add that. Then about 1.5 years ago, I decided, okay, I need to learn this now. I looked into it. I thought, okay, cool, Ethereum has smart contracts. I'm going to buy this. And I did, and then I sold it very soon because Vitalik was postponing the 2.0. And then I looked, okay, what else is there? And I found, Cardano, they're doing Haskell. Okay, when can I start? I didn't even want to know the rest. I was like, okay, I want to code in Haskell. It's my favorite language. It's like the invention of sanitation in hospitals in many regards, right? Just telling people, surgeons, to wash their hands just eliminates whole classes of bugs, essentially. And this is what Haskell also does. I don't want to go into details. If you don't want me to.
It's good to have that understanding and background. It's like a lot of people ask why Haskell. It's like they have to learn a completely new language that a lot of people haven't heard of, and a lot of other devs in other ecosystems I haven't even heard of this, and I'm actually surprised that you heard of it. Did you pick it up at university?
Yes, we had a lecture called Programming Paradigms, and there you learn different ways to do programming instead of the normal imperative object-oriented kind that is popular. And one of those was functional programming, and Haskell was the specimen that we got to examine there, and I liked it. I mean, the thing is, it's hard to explain. I once saw a meme, different programming languages compared with different tools. And there was like Python is a chainsaw, and like C is like a Swiss Army knife, and C++ is one of those Swiss Army knives that are 30 centimeters wide and stuff like that. And Haskell, it just had pictures of fractals, and it's like super beautiful to code in it. And if you make a mistake, you get it told right away by the compiler. And if it compiles, you're pretty sure that it's working, and it's not like, okay, side effects interacted.
Yeah, okay. All right, awesome. So you kind of scare me here with adding in AI, machine learning, and your experience in Haskell all into a decentralized exchange. This is incredible. Can you give us like a 30-second elevator pitch, or just give us an overview of what Mirqur is and why it's different to all the other DEXs?
Sure. So first of all, AI has nothing to do with it. This is just my background, right? I'm doing another very cool project. We are tinkering with a white paper right now, which has AI and blockchain and doesn't have Industry 4.0 and IoT. So not yet the bingo, but the Mirqur exchange is essentially about one thing. It's me being not satisfied with just copy pasting stuff. In the beginning of the year, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to start coding stuff on Cardano. And I think I'm going to start with the easiest one, which is an exchange, because Uniswap has this simple equation, this multiplication. And okay, let me just look up what other exchanges out there. And yeah, half a year later of doing math, I think I have now equations not only figured out, but formally verified with a computer program that unify different value propositions that different exchanges on Ethereum have. And by building it on Cardano, I'm allowed to execute those equations, because one of the huge innovations of Uniswap was to just make the equation super, super simple. you just have a multiplication, like there's this constant, the constant value equation that determines how much you get for your trade. And yeah, I think I'm not sure with the timelines, but I think Balancer was there before, maybe, let's just assume. But they have a better complicated equation. The downside is this takes a lot of gas to compute. And Uniswap was very ingenious in that regard, that they say, okay, we can strip all of this away and just have these two numbers and we multiply them. But on Cardano, you don't need this. You can do whatever equations you want because it's like orders of magnitude more efficient. And so I decided, okay, now I'm going to get out the math. I bought some flip chart blocks where I can write so it fits. And then after making some mistakes, copying mistakes, everyone knows it, right? I decided, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet. This is already 30 seconds, by the way. Okay, I'm going to pull out the lean verifier, which essentially checks your equations. You tell it what you want to change, and then it tells you what the new equation is. And that way you're not making mistakes. Maybe logic mistakes, but not math mistakes. And now I have some things unified mathematically.
Right, okay.
And I'm starting to build it.
Okay, so yeah, it's essentially a DEX where you have written a very good equation for the swappability to work better than what is available on the market at the moment.
Yeah, so there are several things. The core feature, there are other cool features, but the core features is that I combined the portfolio pools that Balancer has, where you can have, instead of only 2 tokens weighted 50-50, you can have arbitrary amounts of tokens in arbitrary weights to each other. The weights determine what the ideal state of the pool is. So the pool tends toward this equilibrium, because if you move away from it, you get more slippage, and if you move closer to it, you get less slippage. So there's a certain financial incentive for the pool to tend towards this equilibrium. And if you have now multiple coins, let's say 3 coins, A, B, C, and you want, for example, to hold them with 80% A, 15% B, and 5% C. How do we express this in 50-50 pools? Sounds difficult and not possible, maybe. And with Balancer style pools or portfolio pools, you can just say, okay, I want to have an ABC pool, and I want to have A weighted 0.8, I want B weighted 0.15, I want C weighted 0.05. And yeah, so that's the natural state the pool tends towards. And another cool thing that Bancor did, they made an impermanent loss insurance. You had already someone talking about the impermanent loss. If you want, I can give some short introduction.
No, please. If there's a lot of things that you're going through here that I'd like to cover. So you're talking about the pools itself. A lot of our listeners don't understand how the pools work or how the concept of actually starting a liquidity pool is. So if you could talk a little bit about that, and then talk about the imperative loss that happens from the disbalance that happens.
So the idea of an automated market maker as opposed to a normal market maker is this has at first nothing to do with DEXs. It's just that DEXs happen to be that way. So in a normal exchange, you have order books, right? You have someone saying, I'm selling this for that. And since if you want to sell tomatoes, it doesn't make sense to go in your backyard at 3 a.m. and say, I'm selling potatoes, because there's hopefully no one there looking to buy potatoes or tomatoes or anything, hopefully. And so you need a market maker. You need someone whose job it is to just sit there with an offer and wait for people to come. Normally, in traditional order book exchanges, those are big financial institutions. The problem is, if the price changes on some other exchange, there are arbitrage opportunities. So they need constantly adjust their price so that they don't get arbitraged away, essentially. And if you want to tell the blockchain, I want to adjust my price that costs gas or transaction fees. And if you have an automated market maker, you can imagine it's like a robot where you buy something, it automatically weights how much cash and how much tomatoes are in the vending machine, for example, and then automatically adjusts the price. So the person buying automatically pays for the price adjustment. So if you're an arbitrageur, you're automatically making the price different. And if you're not wanting to arbitrage, well, then the price is not changing, but you will want to arbitrage. And that's essentially the idea of an automated market maker. And you can give this robot, everyone can go there and say, hey, take my money, do some market making with it, right? And this is why it's a pool, a liquidity pool, where you don't need to be one institution. Everyone can say, okay, I give this robot my money to buy and sell it, essentially, in my tomatoes. And after a while, you come and the robot says, well, I got some fees. Beep, boop. Here you have them.
Magically automatic. Yeah. So let me just get that concept right. So the automated market maker, it does the trading, collects the fees for you. So that's a good concept to understand. And then the liquidity pool itself. So when a user is providing some sort of liquidity, a token or whatever it may be, how does that process work? We just go to something like Uniswap, provide token A, token B into the pool, and that's it?
Yeah, well, essentially, yes. It depends on what you mean with that. I mean, you're leaving stuff out, but that's essentially the idea. I mean, another metaphor I often use is like in Age of Empires, you have this market, and we go there and you buy wood, it automatically, the wood price increases. And this market is like the robot in the other example. And you can go there and say, I'm just dumping wood and stone and whatever I have here. And this is kind of the reserve the market or the robot or whatever trades with. And this is what we mean by providing liquidity. You get in exchange some token that says, I have, like, it works like a redeemer. You can say, okay, I have this redeemer for like 5 tomatoes and $5 or something like that. And then the pool says, okay, essentially, here you have them back. And then we got some fees for you on top of that. And this is the idea. And the good thing is you can implement it as a smart contract. This is also important to stress, because if it's a smart contract and it doesn't have backdoors, by the way, you need to ask no one for permission. You need to trust no one. If there's a bug or a backdoor in there, that's not good, because then people come here and murder me, hopefully, or anyone. Okay, take that back. No one should get murdered, but it's not a smart move to put a backdoor in something like that. So this is the only chance to trifle with it intentionally. And there's no server like where you can go and say, okay, we have a letter now, or we have your family, or we are hackers and we don't need to ask you. We're just hacking into the thing. We're stealing all the money. And yeah, thanks. And you can't do that with a smart contract. You just can't.
Okay, so we've talked about that automated market maker, the liquidity pool itself. What about the imperative loss? So you were talking about that a little bit earlier, where the price, the slippage would happen, and the price difference gets a little bit high. So how does the imperative loss compensate?
It's impermanent loss, and it doesn't compensate. It's just something that sucks about exchanges. It essentially means if you put money in a pool, and the ratio of those tokens that you put in determine the price, right? So let's say you put it in at this price, and then some trading happens, and in some way those ratios change. So the price changes from the original price. And then you take your money out again, and then even if both rose in value or something like that, compared to if you would have just held those tokens in your wallet without adding it to any pool, you would have gotten more out of it. This is not accounting for transaction fees, trading fees. This is why people do it at all. But this is one of the dangers. And this is the loss part. And the impermanent part is, well, if the ratios go back to where when you put it in, then the loss is also gone. And then you still have the trading fees on top that you collected.
Okay, so that's where the risk comes in. Okay. Now, there's a couple of different things with the Mirqur as well. And you described it on the website as let me get this right, a Pareto optimal DEX.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's before I call it an anarcho-mathematical DEX, because I wanted to express that we have two goals. We want to have the best math and we have the best social thing, right? And then people informed me that when you say anarcho, Chris, people think you want to burn down cars, which I want to say for the record, I have no intention of doing so at this moment in time. And so I decided to make it a little bit more acceptable and change it to Pareto optimal. A Pareto optimum is essentially when you have multiple measures that you want to optimize for example, a good math and a good decentralization and social infrastructure and all this stuff. And a Pareto optimum is an optimum where when you would it make better in one regard, you would have to make it worse in the other regard. For example, we could say, okay, by making it a centralized exchange, we can get certain advantages. So we're doing that, but then it's not, then we would need to make the social stuff worse. Or if we, I don't know, have some reason where we could make the social stuff better, for example, by reusing our equations earlier, we would make the math worse because there are like reasons for not showing it around yet. So this is what I mean. It's a kind of bold statement because other exchanges are good too. For example, I've been talking to Ilya and he's doing very great stuff. For example, I'm very excited to see it. But yeah, I say in the light paper that there's room for multiple exchanges, that there can be multiple Pareto optima, but we want to hit one, and I think everyone should.
You also described in the white paper and on the website that you're borrowing a lot of ideas from different DEXs that already exist, and you already explained a little bit with Balancer. Can you go through all of the things that you're looking at in regards to adding into Mirqur?
So the portfolio pools you already discussed, right? Then from Mirqur, I got inspired to do the impermanent loss insurance. The thing is, Balancer has, last time I checked, only binary pools with 50-50 weights. They have on their website some way to adjust it, but you can't do it yet. And what I essentially did, I calculated what this impermanent loss would look like for Balancer, for arbitrary pools, essentially. So we can say, okay, this is how much loss you incurred. So this is how much you get out of it if you take the insurance, because you need to know how much the people need, how much they lost exactly, right? And it wasn't so trivial. And I did some other routes that didn't turn out well mathematically, but it's like, you know how it is. Now I find something. So this would be another thing. And I think this combination I haven't seen before, like portfolio pools and impermanent loss insurance. Also, we are doing the impermanent loss insurance a little bit different than Mirqur. We have a separated pool. You get first in Mirqur, you get insured in their tokens. Secondly, they get just minted and sent to you. But with us, you get insured in ADA. So hard cold cash, you know?
Yeah.
And secondly, it's separated. So this can be seen as an advantage or disadvantage, because if you can print tokens, you're always insured, but you can theoretically get some tragedy of the commons kind of situation, because people who hold the tokens, they pay for the insurance. And what we intend to do is to have a certain pool of ADA where people pay in if they want the insurance, and then they get it out of there if they claim it. And the presence of an insurance makes, in some sense, people not want to take it because they don't need to fear that the money is gone. And this can happen, but I want to have it separate, and I want to have it in some hard currency where we are not printing ourselves. You know, this is one difference.
It's interesting that you've taken the approach where it's ADA that's being paid out for the insurance as well, rather than minting completely different tokens. I didn't see that when I'm going through the light paper, and I think that's a welcomed addition and difference. Yeah, definitely a good approach.
Yeah, I didn't even consider it when writing the white paper. I was so in my head that I didn't even consider the market. Okay. So by the way, if anyone has any input and any needs, please share them. Like, people don't realize that I'm building this for people, right? I'm not building this for myself. I'm building it so people use it. And if I'm building something that I don't want, I'm wasting my time, and they need to tell me what they want.
Yeah.
There's a Discord and everything.
Yeah.
Also, if you think I'm misbehaving, please tell me, because again, I want to hit an ethical optimum also.
Yes, I did notice that with a lot of the changes that you did in the white paper, you wanted to make it as fair as possible. You mentioned that you have got a pool that you're doing for the insurance side of things, but is that the same pool that you're doing for the token that is mentioned as well, or is that something different?
So the thing is, the word pool can mean different things, so I'm not sure what you're referring to, but right now we have one pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, stake pool, there's just one stake pool. So how it works with the insurance, the liquidity providers, if they provide ADA, the ADA gets delegated to our pool that's sitting there in the exchange. And of course, in the liquidity pool, of course, people don't want us to collect all of the gains from that. We could do that, but then people would say, okay, I have this loss. I can delegate my ADAOZ to a pool, or I can have it in the Mirqur liquidity pool, which is again is a different kind of pool. Just for the listeners, it's annoying that it's the same word, but and have there the transaction fees, and then they have a trade-off. So of course we need to give them, if they delegate their liquidity pool ADA to our stake pool and get some 5% or so per year, then they get it too, right? Because then otherwise there's a trade-off. But they can say, okay, instead of getting 5%, I want only 3%, and those 2% are like insurance fees. Why does it make sense to have this at all? And I just say, okay, I'm saving the money myself. Because with insurance, you can essentially leverage like the same thing that fractional reserve banking means. We can say, okay, we don't have enough insurance money in our insurance pool to pay out everyone at once. But because like a bank doesn't have all the money there to pay out everyone at once. But the fact that it's big and it's a pool, and again, a third kind of pool, and it's an insurance, people don't run to get their money out. So you get more out of it essentially by pooling it with other people in an insurance pool fund, whatever you want to call it.
You must have been thinking about this quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been doing not much else the past 6 months or so.
Okay. All right. I did mention the token for the pool as well, and what you were trying to do with that as well. Now, I did look into it, and it's just a general governance token. Is that correct?
Yes, the purpose for the token is essentially the social optimum, the decentralization. I'm saying I need to throw it out to people, and to get people to delegate to our pool, I'm saying I'm throwing it out to them, also to contributors and stuff. But this is, we can go over this later. But yeah, and the idea is that how do you update a smart contract essentially? Either you don't, or you attack it with a vampire attack, which doesn't sound so nice that you need to vampire attack your old version. Or you have some guy with a password that comes and says, okay, we're doing it differently now. Or you make some kind of complicated governance mechanism where people can greenlight changes. And this is what we want to do.
I guess that allows the decentralized exchange to go into the hands of the community and the people that are using it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Brilliant. So what does the team look like? Is it just yourself that's building this, or
very good? I'm just flattering them. They will see it later and will say, oh, you're such a treasure, Chris.
So who else is with you? What's going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, so we have our business dude. What's the name? There's a name for it. The business dude. It's the official job
Sounds
title.
Good.
Ben Chadwin. We have someone who's doing the front end right now. He's Carl Gandhi. And we have 2 more guys who are not comfortable right now revealing their identities. It's not Satoshi Nakamoto.
Okay, fair enough.
At least how much they told me. I can't promise, but at least what they told me, they're not, right? So yeah, one of them is doing the front end and also helping marketing. Another one is doing the community management of those. And we are working, it's in the pipeline to have some kind of team section in the white paper and the website. So you can check it out. And in the end, I post my LinkedIn everywhere. So in the end, I'm holding myself accountable, right? If I think, I don't know what people want to know this, they want to see if there's good people. And the people who are programming, you can have a look at. And you want to have someone accountable. So this is why I'm standing here.
I found that it's a big thing in the Cardano community. People want to know who's behind the project, who's the person doing the code, and also GitHub repositories behind certain code as well. So I don't know how far along you guys have gotten down the track of development. I'm pretty sure you would have done quite a bit as it is. But have you released any code yet? Has anything been audited? Like how far down the track are you?
No, the thing is, we don't have, it's kind of a tricky thing because our USP is that we have very good tech, especially math, and this can be copied, and we don't have much traction. And if I would be, even I copied half of the stuff and then I improved it, but I didn't invent it from ground up. And I think the other exchanges, they should take my math once I release it, right? Otherwise, they are just hurting the users. And again, there's reasons for multiple DEX to exist, even if they have the same optimal equations. And alone, even that, maybe when I say optimal, that means under certain assumptions. And if you break those assumptions, you get the whole combinatorial explosion. And if more people are using them, more people will figure out how to make them better, right?
Yeah.
So, but before we can do that, we need to get some traction going so that we are well known and, people can say, okay, we want to reward those guys for inventing it.
Yes.
We have some other USPs why it doesn't matter if we don't have so much liquidity for the user, because we then will just route our trade to another exchange, a little bit like an exchange aggregator.
Okay.
Because another thing is, if you allow portfolio pools, you're probably going to get a million different pools. And so I made essentially an optimizer which numerically optimizes over all those pools. Because imagine the following: if you have one pool with a good price, in practice this wouldn't happen because arbitrageurs, but I don't want to make assumptions when building those things, because if you say this won't happen, probably, and then 3 of those things together are a nuclear blast, right? So I want to say this is absolutely rigid. I'm doing those assumptions that imagine there's a pool that has a good price but little liquidity, another pool that has not such a good price but a lot of liquidity. That means if you trade in the smaller pool, the price will change quickly, like this, and the other will change slower. So how do you split your trade over those 2 pools, right? And yeah, this is essentially what I build an optimizer for. And this optimizer can optimize over other DEXs too, right? So I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to force the people, if they go to my interface, to trade with my shitty exchange. If the other ones are making a way better offer, then at least I'm sending them over there, right?
Okay. That's pretty clever.
Thanks.
To give the user the best price possible. All right. Okay.
I mean, it's capitalism, right?
Essentially, yes. Okay. This is pretty interesting stuff, and very good, unique selling propositions as well. So it's thank you for sharing those. Hopefully,
I'm happy to share.
Yeah. I'm really hoping people get behind the project a little bit more and get a better understanding of what you're trying to achieve. So how are you funding the project? How are you getting this off the ground? And are you dedicating all your hours for free, or
yes.
are you trying to get paid for it as well?
I'm doing it on my own dime right now.
Yep.
I mean, I have the stake pool. I'm not selling my ADAOZ, but I'm doing it on my own dime. I'm paying for the front end and stuff. And other people, they are also just like me. They just want the tokens when it's done.
Yep.
And yeah.
Wow. Okay. Dedication. That's you're there definitely for the vision.
I mean, I have tried some startup things before. It's not the first thing I do and not the last. And it fits way better with my character, because I don't know, I don't like, you can't do this because I have to go now, and political reasons probably. And I just don't like it. Okay. I like to do things my own way. And I have over here a statue of the goddess Kali, and I think you need to always provoke danger to live safely. You know what I mean? If you are not going out and exposing yourself to the danger is going to come to you, but 20 years later, because it's starting to rot, essentially. Like Taleb and such, like anti-fragile, you need to expose your weaknesses, and then if they get snagged, it hurts. But if you don't expose your weaknesses, they fester, and then you get old, essentially. Not in age, but in character and being. You are saying, okay, back when I was younger, I was in the war, but now I just sat around. And yeah, this is what I think leads to a good life, if you constantly do things that are not so safe.
Yeah.
Don't take this as instruction, kids. Be safe.
Pushing around boundaries, and so you can grow spiritually and emotionally and physically and whatnot. So yes, I totally understand those aspects. Okay. So in regards to like the continuous maintenance of this, I'm guessing you and your team will continue to be working on the project in the future. Is that what you have planned? So I know that the governance token will help dictate and control the direction of the project in the future. Are you going to stick around and and see the project through for a couple more years or 10 years, or what's your plan with it?
Well, I'm not going to drop it, right? I mean, if I build it, and I'm hoping that it will a little bit be self-sufficient. But so another, how do I say it, project isn't the right term. It's like a common denominator of all projects. And we are intending to make it our own project at some time. But right now it's just a way of doing things that we're experimenting with, and not with Mirqur yet. It's just like ideas right now, but it's like how to facilitate cooperation with people. Essentially, it's like open source is asking people to contribute their things, their time, and they get some renown for it. And you can have companies that make money with open source things, but they all got developed when there weren't efficient smart contracts out there, these all ideas. And so the general idea is that what do you need for a project? You need managers, right? You need people who delegate tasks, who split them up into smaller tasks. You need maybe a recursive structure of managers, maybe not. And the idea is essentially, how do we formalize this, that you can say, okay, I need a website, and then people can come, or teams of people or managers who then hire other people. And that way you get essentially the whole textbook capitalism thing essentially works, because in the real world, it often doesn't work because you have so many delays that, essentially it's just a textbook abstraction. But with code and smart contracts, you can implement this textbook abstraction. And we're just figuring out how, by building other projects and trying to informally grow in this direction, right? So what I'm hoping is that after a while, there's going to be this, I don't want to say community because it's more than community, it's like a structure and a community. Like in a normal organization, you also have both, right? You don't have only a structure, but not only just some people sitting around a campfire and thinking how cool it would be to write some code for the bank or whatever, you do it. And if you don't do it, you don't get paid. And you can formalize this, maybe. And this is essentially what I hope, how things are going to be done everywhere in the future, at least in computing, just that there's effective collaboration systems. And this, of course, hopefully takes over there now. But again, to answer your question, I'm not going to just drop it. I'm hoping, though, that now is very stressful time in it, that this is not going to stay like that, because it works. I hope that it's going to work. And after all, it's just a DEX. I started with it because I thought, okay, I'm going to be done with it in 2 weeks, just copy paste this equation. And then I got myself into the whole of mathematics.
Well, yeah. I guess it's a very good. Well, it probably was a good idea to start off with the DEX, but you just made it a little bit more in depth than what you're expecting to.
It's my own problem. If this would be a job interview in the 90s, I would say, well, I'm a perfectionist. This is my biggest weakness. But times has passed.
All right. We've spoken about a lot of things here. And have we missed anything?
Oh, a lot. I mean, I said there's so much to say. And an interesting feature that maybe we should mention is like the cross-chain capabilities, because we're not announcing that, because we don't want to announce a million things. You already have 500,000. So, but I wanted to say this is just a technical challenge, because you have this ERC20 token converter. So everyone wanting to trade ERC20 tokens can probably just convert them, trade and convert them back. And at some point, it would be super cool to have this integrated in our thing. Again, you just need, it's not doesn't sound like a super high engineering challenge. It's just like, okay, you have the software, you need to plug it in this other software somehow. Maybe those dangerous last words, but this essentially, that would be cool to have. So I'm guessing that everyone will have cross-chain functionality soon, and that's pretty great, because then we have a wider market. And this is one of the reasons I think we need multiple DEXs, because we have multiple target audiences outside of the Cardano ecosystem. And they like different aesthetics and stuff. And also the second reason would be that we have different governance systems, and you can't prove that there's the best governance system. It's called error theorem, something like that. But so we need to have different governances. If one of them figures a way out to hurt itself, the others are still around and they're still DEXs.
Now, in terms of how people can find and follow you guys, what's the best communication channels?
We have Discord. This is what I prefer. We also have a Twitter. We have a Reddit. That's about it. We got a Telegram, but we try to phase it out so we don't have a fourth one, Yeah. So it's, to summarize, Discord, Twitter, and Reddit.
So big thanks again to Chris for explaining all those different terms in regards to decentralized exchange and really breaking things down. I think some of his analogies in regards to gaming as well really helps some users visualize how it all works. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining me on this podcast episode, and good luck in regards to Mirqur and its direction of where it's going. I know I'll be trying to get some governance tokens to just see how the space plays out for Mirqur. You can find all of the links to their social media channels, their Discord, etc. in the show notes for this podcast episode. You can also watch their video that I have published on YouTube, so you can actually see Chris in action and talking about his decentralized exchange there too. There's also a bit of conversation there, and I've noticed Chris jump on and reply to some of the comments. So if you want to ask some questions, some follow-ups, please do. He's willing and there to answer any of the questions. Now, like I said earlier in this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review. Do it now. And it'll really help other people find and discover this podcast. So we'd really appreciate if you do something like that, or share it on your social media, share it on your social channels. That really would help us as well. That's it for this podcast episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, everyone, please keep your seed phrases safe and secure and keep them backed up. Okay, bye.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debating. IOHK, Mirqur, we're not affiliated, not Cardano Foundation. We just gotta say it. A show that you can learn and it's for your entertainment. Yeah, you gotta check it. Don't wanna be missing that. You were tuned in to the Learn Cardano podcast. Yeah, giving insight. Ain't another show like this when it come to crypto. Invest at your own risk. Might not be for everyone, but who it is for, we keep giving you some info and plenty more. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Keep it locked right here. Let's go.